There is a line between like a Ponzi scheme and like a business, so I'll just leave it at that.
Do you have insurance?
When is he gonna
propose?
Hey, adult already, hello!
Alright, welcome back to another episode of Adulting with Former Children with us, the Former Children. This is a podcast by Zotopop, and this is where we share our growing pains and we learn from each other's mistakes as well, as we try to become adults. Alright, let's do a quick round of introductions. My name is Clemens, and Bitcoin to the moon! I really hope it goes 100k. There's been like news of it going to 100k. But of course it's fake lah, but just living for the hype.
Okay, hi, I'm Jin, and I put $300 into crypto once before chickening out, and ever since then I have not touched it.
So is it gone or is it like...
It's still there.
Okay.
I think I blew it up to about like $500, and then it sort of crashed, and then now I don't know. I haven't checked. Let's not talk about it. Hey, Yang, come on.
Okay, hi, I'm Yang, and I spent 6 weeks torturing our special guest today with Roman Holiday by Nicki Minaj. Let's take your medication, Roman. Yeah, every single morning. Yes.
How do you deal?
Flashbacks.
Yes. Every time, every single morning.
Wow.
It was my alarm. It was my alarm.
You're the worst.
Yes, I was truly the worst roommate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alright, just want to invite our special guest, Qing Ze. He's someone who is deep in the Web3 space. He works at Tribe and he helps to build blockchain ecosystems through education, incubation programs, and accelerators. Yeah, so say hi, Qing Ze.
Hello, hi everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm very glad to be on the podcast.
Thank you for coming on.
Plus, I have to add a funny story. Qing Ze is quite involved in the Web3 space, right? And he once gave a presentation to SMU kids. I think it was virtual. And then, and James, my boyfriend, was part of that audience, and he was so inspired by Qing Ze that day that he applied for an internship at his company.
Wow.
And then James has been working under Qing Ze.
He's great.
Nice.
Yeah, really.
Oh, he'll be so happy to hear that.
Right.
What the students don't know is that I did it in the middle of dinner.
Oh my goodness.
You were eating at the same time.
Yeah, then I
you
almost
were
forgot.
Wow, you almost forgot about it. Yeah, but who knows? Actually, that presentation changed his life.
Yeah, were there anyone else or is it just James?
Actually, 2 people applied actually.
Oh.
Yes.
Did the other person get in? That is the other question. Did the other?
No, I have standards. So
Oh! Did you see that, James?
Validation. Alright.
And by the way, if Qing Ze's voice is familiar to you, Qing Ze came on to Adulting before when it was a Clubhouse show. So if you listen to him before, today's content will be different from
very
what
different.
we did the other time. So
Yeah. I would say it's a lot more structured in a sense, and also a lot more educational, less
You
conversational.
get to learn more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole podcast versus Clubhouse thing.
Okay.
Alright.
Let's go.
Maybe-
Meat of the episode.
Maybe jump straight into just let's all just share our impression of what Web3 is. Maybe Yang, you start first.
Okay, so I mean, I am a bit more of a tech nerd than I guess the two of you guys. And I have been speaking to Qing Ze about Web3 for a while. So I think my impression of Web3 is that whatever we see online right now, I feel like it really doesn't represent what Web3 is. But I personally am still quite a skeptic. Especially when it comes to whatever is happening with NFTs, with DAOs. To me, if it's money grubbing, I can't stand for it lah. There is a line between a Ponzi scheme and a business, so I'll just leave it at that.
So do you feel like the technology is great, but it's just going the wrong direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my knowledge of Web3 is super, super vague. And I think the most basic thing that I know about it is that Web3 is the next stage of the internet. Because the internet has been around actually the internet has been around roughly the same amount of time of our lives. For the development, the mass adoption of internet has been only for the past 20-30 years. And I feel
20-30 years?
Yeah, the mass adoption.
Oh, that's quite...
You mean like
Oh,
Web
actually-
2.0?
Yeah, Web 2.0. Yeah, I mean before like
Like
okay, can you?
social.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like how like almost everybody had access to the internet.
With the phones and everything. lah.
Yeah. But Web 3 is like the next stage of it, like the big,
It's
the
just
big.
fast.
Yeah, it's like as if like someone up there is saying, hey, you waited like 30, 40 years, 20, 30, 40 years. Here is the next stage of the internet. And then
Then
it's
slowly
like
we have
this.
started flying cars.
Yeah. It's like a very bubble-like kind of space. And I do know it's something where more power is given to the users of the space rather than the owners of the space, like websites and businesses and companies. But it's more like, mass-driven lah. Yeah. But then I'm gonna stop here because I'm gonna butcher the rest of the definition. I probably got it wrong. So today's session is for me to clarify things.
Yeah, for me, I have a rough idea of what Web3 is, and I know that it's based on the blockchain technology. I am quite looking forward to the metaverse, where I'm not sure if you guys watched this movie. It's called Ready Player One. So it's where you go into the capsule, then you go. I'm not sure that's Web3 lah, but I keep hearing like metaverse. So I'm thinking like it makes sense only if you have this kind of machines and you're actually like, when you open your eyes, you're actually in a virtual character in a virtual world. I think
Sword
that's
art,
yeah, Sword Art Online. Yeah, exactly, the anime. Oh, I love it. Yeah, so maybe let's have things to just share a bit more about what Web3 really is about.
I think before we even get into that, right, we have already thrown out like a lot of terms that need to be defined.
Oh.
So let's do that first. Let's define some of these terms. Like first, I think we just jumped off at metaverse. So why not we jump in with talking about metaverse first? What is a metaverse?
Oh, that's interesting. I think the concept of metaverse came up like 20 years ago from like a very dystopian novel. So I think if you celebrate a metaverse, you're not really sure what you're actually celebrating. The idea of a metaverse is like, I think the original idea was a way to sort of like capture like entire populations into like some sort of digital universe where like your overlords have like complete control. And so that's sort of where the whole like cyber runners, that kind of stuff came about.
Yep.
There was like a whole game about it and that was pretty interesting.
Like Blade Runner.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, Second Life. Is
Yes,
Second
yes,
Life a
yes.
metaverse?
Yeah, and also
Apple
Matrix.
Hotel?
Yeah.
Matrix, Matrix,
Or
Matrix.
to some people,
yes,
I mean,
Matrix.
Club
Yeah.
Penguin is technically a metaverse.
So
correct.
almost
Yeah.
like containing the whole like billions of people into like one chip. Something
It's
like
It's like a second life lah.
Essentially a digital universe.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the irony here is that in a digital universe, you don't actually have scarcity. So why are we sort of like recreating like artificial scarcity in a place that could be of abundance?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think this is interesting because like the split between the metaverse that, I mean, some of us call it like the Zuckerberg metaverse, right? It's actually fairly dystopian compared to the Web3 that we're trying to do. So I think the Web3 that Claimers wants to be in is a space where we can live in abundance, right? But right now the metaverse is sort of like controlled or at least being pushed by like one particular company that owns like almost all social media. Because they technically already have a metaverse if you think about it, right? So your digital lives are all sort of like on Facebook. In my opinion, I mean, when you look at some of the Facebook metaverse stuff, it's all like VR related.
Yep.
But the element of ownership to me is not very clear. And I think that's where the difference comes about between like the ideal sort of Web3 metaverse that I personally like to see and the Web3 metaverse that some people might be pushing.
Okay.
Cool.
Then what is Web 3?
Right. So Web 3 is kind of interesting because it like implies there's a Web 2 and a Web 4. But like you have no idea where Web 4 is. But I'm just going to start where I am right now. So I think Web 3, as some of you have already mentioned, it has to do with like the internet of value. The idea that you can actually own assets that belong to you without having some sort of intermediary, without like sacrificing your data. And all of that's really important because what happens is that value now accrues to the protocols that we use, not so much like just like individual companies. So I think in Web3, what you find really interesting is that you have like these very large protocols that have like trillions of dollars locked in it, but you don't see as many like large billionaires, like compared to say in Web2, where for example, most of us are on a few sort of like protocols, air quotes, like Amazon or Facebook, and you find that maybe there are like a few very large billionaires that show up there, like Jeff Bezos or like Mark Zuckerberg or the guys that founded Facebook, right? But in Web3 it's kind of different because what happens is that actually we sort of share in the protocol, and so by using it, right, being a part of it, by participating, we grow the value together. And I think that's really powerful in Web3 because I think it's really meaningful form of decentralization rather than just like trying to sort of like sacrifice so much of our, I guess, some form of liberty or some sort of choice to like platforms that may or may not be in your best interests. So I think this sort of came up as sort of like a pushback, because I think when the idea of Web 2 came about, and I think after the I think Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, so there was a lot of like pushback on Web 2, because I think people started to realize that these large organizations that you give your data to may not necessarily be doing things in your best interests, and therefore Web 3 will hopefully be a place where you can decide these things for yourself.
Cool.
No, that was a very long explanation,
Yes.
but it was a good one.
Yes.
Because that part where you mentioned where, well, we kind of already have protocols in place like Facebook, Amazon, and stuff like that. Perhaps maybe the difference between that and Web3 is that those protocols, air quotes, have CEOs. They have like huge stakeholders and stuff like that. But would you say that in Web3 it's a lot more flatly distributed and everyone is contributing in their own
Yeah.
ways?
So I think that's an aspiration. So to be honest, like Web3 is a very large term. It encompasses like all sorts of things. I mean, even metaverse is something that came about, right? But also like decentralized finance, NFT gated communities, all of these different things. The internet computer, these are different types of protocols. So in my opinion, I hope that this decentralization would happen, but it doesn't necessarily happen for all protocols.
Right. So
Yeah.
what are the most well-known protocols in the Web3 space right now?
Right. So I think when it comes to protocols, right, the most popular one, as some of us call it, the grandfather of all Web3, is Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And really,
Clams baby.
right. It's really interesting because, like, I think Bitcoin, when you talk about protocols, right, deep down inside, I think there's some opinion that honestly, it's really just a way to communicate, right? How do you get a group of people that have never met each other, all over the world, to agree on something? And that's really just communication, right? And so for Bitcoin, what it does is that it actually lets you agree on one message, which is how much do I owe you and how much do you owe me, and what's the current state of the global ledger. So that is actually the first sort of like cryptocurrency protocol. So I think this is where it gets really interesting, because Ethereum right now is getting quite a lot of interest because of the upcoming sort of, some people call it an upgrade, but really it's more of like a transition away from proof of work. So, we are much more, so that they are more climate friendly, which I think is really important. I don't want to burn the earth down. So what Ethereum does is that it changes that message into instructions. So that's really interesting, because like so much of human coordination is giving each other instructions, right? I mean, when you compute or when you program, you're just telling a computer, if this happens, do that, right? I mean, when Alan Turing came up with the computer, it was really what you call an infinite machine, right? Something that can just keep looping forever and solve anything that you want. And that's sort of what Ethereum is also described as, an infinite machine. So it lets you build anything to an extent, and because of its extensibility and sort of like versatility, like a lot of things are built on it. And so right now, most of Web3, I think when you talk about it, people will generally think of Ethereum, because that's where you can start building this decentralized web on.
Oh, but you can't really build it on Bitcoin.
Yeah. So thing about Bitcoin is that I think the community and Bitcoin itself is meant to be quite simple and understandable and very pure. So Bitcoin does one thing really well, and there's nothing in the history of man that has anything close to what Bitcoin has done at the level of security that it has. Yeah.
So, Clem, your money is quite secure in Bitcoin, basically.
Yeah. So maybe
Not the value lah.
better go out.
Yeah, but okay, but this is my question. So Bitcoin almost only serves one purpose.
Yes.
Is it? Which is the
The
keeping the ledger of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
So, but then how does the value of Bitcoin just go up like that?
Well.
Like, what determines the value of Bitcoin?
Is it not like demand and supply?
Is it not people putting in money? Right?
Is it?
So I think that's the thing about any sort of like assets. So the market decides for the asset. So in general, this is what defines price, right? So the invisible hand, market forces, right? For Bitcoin in particular, honestly, I don't know, and very few people know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that not a problem?
I think I heard something about like how Bitcoin actually burns their coins, so it reduces supply. then people continue to buy, and that's the demand, and that's how
Sounds
you
like a
price go up.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
No.
Wait.
Bitcoin does destroy the.
Wait, so
the-
Bitcoin
it burns.
is physical?
So I'll
Like the
have to
number of
clarify a bit of that.
Is
So,
it, right? I don't know. I just
Yeah.
bring it out. So
so I think the idea of a burn, Bitcoin doesn't do it.
Oh, is
People burn Bitcoin by accident.
Oh.
So firstly, what happens when something is burnt? So very simple, right? When you burn something, it can't be used. So what does this mean? So Bitcoin records like who owns how much Bitcoin, right? And this is done in the form of transactions. So if you send a transaction to an invalid address, nobody will receive that Bitcoin, and therefore it is burnt.
Oh.
So
So
that's
it
the
doesn't
idea.
bounce?
Oh, so once you lose it forever, and
And-
that
and
that
yeah.
loss is like recorded in the Bitcoin protocol.
Yeah, there's no way to get it back.
Like, sucker bitch! Like you can just like bid farewell to your Bitcoin. It was burned.
Right.
But okay, like that burn thing, right? Actually, I feel like it's almost it links back to how Web3 is really there's so much emphasis put on the individual. So if you accidentally send your Bitcoin to a wrong address, the only onus is on you, and you have no one to blame. You can't blame the protocol. You can't blame like the manager of the of Bitcoin. You
Yeah.
can't blame
There's no
anyone but
support
yourself.
desk.
there's no
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
and I think maybe that's why like these protocols have somewhat of a value because you really have to keep yourself in check, and you are also responsible for what you put into the protocol and what you take out of it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, but that actually is my point also. Like I wanted to mention this also. Like, is this not a problem? Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, I think 90% or 50% at most, at minimum, 50% of the consumers need some sort of support, or they need some sort of safeguard.
Yeah.
Some kind. Like even myself, when I do things on the net, I just like, oh, terms and conditions, next. I don't read any of that
Yeah.
things because I know that most of the time there's a way out. Like if I fuck it up, I send the money to the wrong person. Then I just write an email to the hot desk and they will to the help desk and they will fix
Yeah.
it for me.
Yeah.
But with Web3, I don't think we have that kind of like situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Pros and cons.
There's
lah.
a lot
know,
of
what can we do?
responsibility on you as an individual playing part in Web3, and like it's a good and a bad thing lah.
yeah, but
Yeah,
that,
because
that's
we
why
should
I-
technically be always reading the terms and
I
conditions, and we
mean-
can't always have someone cover our asses. And like, okay, like this is a question I have: is everyone on blockchain anonymous?
Oh no, not necessarily.
Oh,
but
So
you
okay.
can be.
yeah, it's very hard also. So I think this is interesting because the anonymity thing comes about from, I guess, the sort of like complexity of it. So the thing about blockchain is that because it is, it's a chain of blocks and it's immutable, right? So as long as somebody can find out who this address belongs to, and I feel this is something that happens as a matter of time, like I guess the truth will come to light kind of thing, then you can just trace it back. So it's like a very weak guarantee of anonymity. And so generally, I think the arguments for like Bitcoin as an anonymous money laundering thing is like quite weak.
Right. Because you can
Yeah.
always trace it back to a certain address, and that
Yes.
address can always, be used against you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's happened before. Yeah.
Yeah. So watch out, you crypto scammers. I'm coming after you, especially one of those people who scammed me. I'm looking at you, Cardano.
wait, did you get rug pulled?
Oh yeah, no. Actually, I didn't get rug pulled. But okay, this is a story. Later, you can clip it out and you put it into the appropriate segment. But what happened was, see, I don't even remember what the NFT was. But when I was trying to play around with NFT, there was this NFT that was launching. It's starting with Lion something, on the Cardano blockchain. Okay, so when the NFT launched, like the owners of the NFT usually have a Discord channel, right? And they post the address where you have to send your ADA coins to to buy the NFT at the time that they release the NFTs.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the owners, this mother beep this guy he decided to betray the whole community and his co-developers, and he posted his own personal wallet address onto the Discord channel when the NFT was launched. Yeah, so people seeing that he was one of the moderators or the admin of the Discord channel was like, oh, okay, like this guy posted the address. This must be this must be the legit address, right? So they all sent his ADA, their ADA to him, and he got away with roughly 100. Okay, this figure I have no idea, but I just know that it was in the hundreds thousands in a single night.
Wow.
Yeah. So, well, I was one of those dumbasses who were like, oh my god, that's the address, and then I sent
So
it.
it's like limited edition, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying to grab it.
Yeah.
So
So I sent it to that address, and then we found out that the guy had betrayed the whole NFT community. Then the other admin actually covered, and they refunded everyone back. Yeah.
refunded, meaning they took money out from their own wallets,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. But
right.
the guy. Oh, and this is the real tea, okay? He's from Singapore. Yeah, the guy, he was on
Cybercrime
the
unit.
yeah, he was on the Singapore Discord channel. So everyone knew that he was Singaporean.
Huh.
Wow, I
trash.
love that. I mean, in an ironic way.
Tea, right? Yeah, yeah. So that was the first time that I realized how it's so important for you to be very aware of where you send your like coins money to in Web3.
Yeah.
Like it's always traceable, but once it's not reversible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you experience a sort of like a burn by yourself.
I think so. But well, the coin didn't get burnt, like it got stolen from me.
Yeah,
Okay, at least you got it back.
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Scary.
I'm looking at you.
Okay. Yeah, which then makes me think that this is what's gonna doom Web3 to the sidelines. Like you'll always stay on the fringes. I don't know whether this is a hot take or not, but like I feel like because of how much burden or responsibility there is for yourself to take care of your own belongings, like it's like anarchist like
Or libertarian.
mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That. and you never you always have to be on this high alert, right? So like, why should I, as like a noob that I have no stake in this, why should I even bother to
Right,
put
right.
my foot into a sea of sharks?
But
you know.
in that sense, isn't that what we always want from like companies like Facebook, Amazon, and stuff like that? We want ownership of our things, and we want that autonomy over our assets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this is really the extreme of that.
It's extreme freedom, lah.
Yeah. This is really extreme freedom. That you have control of everything. So you have control of where you want to send it to. You have control of where you want to keep it, like which wallet you want to contain your money
Yeah,
in,
but
stuff like that.
If
Yeah.
where we live right now is any indication, people do like to be nannied, lah. So like people don't want pure freedom.
So the question is,
Right.
are we adult enough to be in the Web3 space?
Okay.
Maybe,
Are we?
yeah.
Are we?
Are
I
we-
think the tides will change lah. It will slowly transition to having like this amount of freedom will be better for, I feel like the communities, for the younger generation. I think.
Okay, yeah, I hope that was something to, food for thought for you all to mull about while we go on a break. Later, when we are back, we will talk about the value of Web3 and also how we might be able to imagine a future in Web3.
Right. Okay.
We'll be back.
And we're back. Hey, I like that.
That's quite cool.
Keep it, okay? Okay, so earlier on, we were talking about freedom in Web3, the individual freedom that we get to enjoy in Web3, but also its extreme,
It's a double-edged
yeah,
sword.
it's a
Could be a
double-edged
bad
sword.
thing.
Yeah, and right now, let's talk about really the feasibility of Web3. If we know all the benefits and the cons of Web3, we also have to see how it applies to us in real life as well. And I think the biggest question a lot of people have in the freedom that we enjoy in the Web3 space is also how we get to own our things. Like everything that we own is sort of stored in that blockchain, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this ownership of your content in the various protocols. So, Qing Ze, can you describe what is it about Web3 that makes owning content so good?
Well, I think this is an interesting question, right? So, like I think everyone has sort of mentioned that ownership means that you also own your consequences, and so I think that's kind of powerful because then this means that I think this will sort of make us realize that we should live a bit more intentionally. So I think that's something that people don't really realize, which is that when you do get the kind of ownership that we sort of crave, something that adults kind of get after they have completed their childhood, right? There is definitely consequences. And I think in Web3, it's the best place, I guess, to sort of like build the kind of world that you want now that it's your turn to shepherd, like sort of the world that we're in, for the kind of the world that you want to build. And so I think when it comes to the power of ownership, right? Something kind of beautiful that I think I've heard before is that now that you can sort of program anything into the blockchain, right, into your smart contracts and all that. This is one of the very few chances in civilization that we can program the values that we want into the blockchain. And so I think that's really interesting, right? Because now that you're an adult, right, you have to make trade-offs, right? There are things that you have to do, and things that you don't have to do, things that when you do, there's going to be consequences. And right now, you can do that at scale, globally, right? And build the kind of world that you want, or, a world that might not be as good, right? So everything, there's two sides to it, right? You can either end up as the dystopian metaverse or a metaverse of abundance, right? So I think back to the story that you had, I think that's very salient because it represents both sides of Web3 that I see a lot. So the negative side of Web3 that I think, right, the different values is that people tend to prey on human sort of like weaknesses, in a sense like the FOMO, kind of thing. So like I think when you mentioned that when somebody posted and that guy, this person is like a admin, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who is trusted, right? And that FOMO kicked in, and you'd be like, oh no, I really want to get in. And so without verifying, sort of your animal instinct kicks in, and you quickly send your money in, and it turns out that was actually a scam, right? I think right now, this is not the kind of world that we want to have, right? I think equitability is something we prefer, right? Rather than just having, whoever first come first serve, fastest fingers first, that kind of thing. But I think even more powerfully is that maybe a meritocracy is better, right? Singapore. So here's where it gets interesting, right? Because an alternative could be, say you're in this Discord channel, right? And they're about to launch this NFT mint/drop, depending on how you want to call it. So who should be a part of the drop? Well, how about people that contributed to the community? How about people that actually took part? How about people that gave part of their time? And so this is really interesting because I think Richard Feynman once said this, right? Like the keys to heaven also open the gates to hell, right?
Oof.
So,
That's deep.
so the ability to give you things that you currently own can be both sides. You can now use this to reward great behavior, or you can turn it into a casino.
And do you think that right now it's a casino?
So here's something that I like to say, which is when the blockchain lets you build anything and you choose to build a casino, I think that's on you.
Well,
That's
I
on me.
mean-
Joke's on me.
I'm not saying that you built it.
No, but I learned my lesson from that. Then what about all these different protocols? How do they work together
Okay.
to create one big Web3? Like, because I can't possibly be playing and participating in every single protocol out there, right? And so why are people making so many more protocols when there are like really good ones already in place? So like Ethereum is already so huge. There's a huge community, but why are people creating another protocol, like a different country?
And
almost?
I want to add on to this question.
Yeah.
when we talked about how Web 2.0 has barons, right? There are like people who own like a large chunk of it. Is Ethereum not that large chunk? And understanding that there can be more than one protocol, like what you said, right? There are multiple different protocols. Like, I mean, just like how in open source there are always new alternative people make forks of different projects because they want a certain feature. I mean, maybe this is answering your question, right? Like there's a certain feature that maybe Ethereum doesn't provide, so they fork it, and then there's a new fork. My question then is that at the end of the day, just like how species die and we end up with like an apex predator that fills the ecological niche, wouldn't the same thing happen in Web3?
This is definitely a very interesting question.
A little convoluted as well. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's
but
okay.
No,
You
no,
can
it's good,
edit
it's
it in post.
I hope.
So I think the beauty of this is that yes, Ethereum is right now the largest sort of like smart contract platform. So the first question is, why are there so many different ones? Well, I think the beauty is Ethereum is open source, which means that if you disagree with Ethereum, you can actually just make a copy of it and run your own thing. This is impossible. If I'm unhappy with Instagram, well, good luck to me lah. If I'm unhappy with TikTok, I don't know lah.
Oh, it's like if you are unhappy with Instagram, then you make another app like Outstagram. If you're unhappy with TikTok, you make something like TokTik. Like almost similar, but the aspect that is not satisfied by the protocol is sort of filled in the new protocol.
So this is interesting because like even governments find it hard to regulate Facebook.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like Ethereum, for example, and say, I don't like Ethereum's block time, it's so slow. I can just take the code, change it, and make it faster. And actually, there's a lot of blockchains that do exactly that. Right. So a lot of different protocols, you know, and this is innovation, and I think it's great, right? Like if you can do better, then do better, right? And the beauty about, I guess, like Web3 values is that we are not possessive about these kinds of things, right? I think people that really care about the world they want to grow into, we care more about the best solution and not who created it.
Yeah.
Right. So this tribalism is honestly not very like helpful, because if we can make the world better, then let's run together. No point saying, you know, what shoes you're running, you know, or wearing.
I mean,
Yeah.
but then again, an example, Android is open source, right? And I mean, the rationale is like, oh, if you think that Google's implementation is not good enough, then you can create your own. And many companies have done that as well. But then again, Google has such an iron grip over Android because of Google's extra sprinkles on the top of Android open source project, right? So then what stops people from being Google? Like Ethereum can become Google, right? And add their own little sprinkle and their little flair to Ethereum that makes it so unlivable without. So
this
how
is
do you
interesting,
prevent
right?
that?
What you described has actually happened. So there are people that actually create like different types of Ethereum software that have like additional benefits to it and try and attract people to start using that particular sort of like client. But the thing is, they all still are part of the same network. I guess that's the thing about like decentralization, I suppose, or openness, right? There are different degrees of decentralization and different degrees of openness. So Google controls, I guess, to some extent, not just Android, but like an entire ecosystem on top of Android and below Android. I think they started making phones a few years ago, right?
Yep.
The Pixel and all that, right? And so by controlling the entire stack, right, they are essentially as good as Apple, because you need all of these pieces to come together. Ethereum is kind of beautiful because it sort of like fixates on just one thing, which is just the blockchain layer itself, you know, the whole mechanism for coordination and nothing else, right? So you don't really see like Ethereum specializing in like, oh, this super powered special super node Ethereum client thing, right? If anyone proposes this, it will get shot down because it's completely against like the philosophy of like the Ethereum community and the Web3 that I like to see.
Okay. It sounds like we are still running on a lot of goodwill, I guess, like a lot of belief in the human spirit of betterment.
No, it sounds really idealistic.
Yeah.
And maybe for those who are really skeptical of like humans, or
Like me.
you don't trust people, or you have trust issues, you'll be like, it sounds too good to be true, lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, but to be fair, like you can't blame people for feeling that way right now, because you have this idealistic vision, and at the same time you have the people who are rug pulling with NFTs and people who are like out to get you, and you can't like look at these two side by side and be like, oh yeah, it makes sense, because you know, like I guess maybe we can just be a little bit more idealistic and think that, you know,
It's the one chance you can, I think.
Yeah, like
Like,
it
gives you
will
hope.
get there, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep that hope,
Yeah.
right? So it's beautiful because like what happened is that what you described, you know, this whole altruism and goodwill thing,
Yeah.
the community recognized it, and now there are active initiatives to be like, hey, I think these developers should be paid better. And actually, what happened, I think a few months, 2 months back maybe, people started coming together and creating organizations to support them, a bit like a workers' collective, and this happened completely ground up.
Nice. Unionized.
Wow, yeah. Like a whole union.
Something like that. Not really a union,
Kind
I
of.
sort of avoid that term.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because like some of these like folk as part of the community have realized that hey, the community would like to help out too, and actually created what I think it's called Protocol DAO or something, basically a decentralized organization
Mm.
where anybody and everybody who has ever helped Ethereum on GitHub and contributed code or is working on any of their clients will now automatically be a part of this DAO. And same thing like meritocracy, right?
Mm.
So what happened is that I'm not sure, I couldn't verify this, but they airdrop or given like tokens or like different parts of this to like people as part of this DAO retroactively.
Nice.
So
So
this
it's
is
like
really
a
beautiful.
rewarding, quite
Exactly.
rewarding for the people who build it, and it's like as much blood, sweat, and tears go into it, you will be sort of rewarded for it, and you will also enjoy the fruits of your labor and take credit for it.
So I think the beauty of this is that, yeah, I think it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you're not working solely for the profit motive, right, and you're doing things that have value, I think you need to have hope and I guess a bit of faith that people will recognize this value and eventually, support you for it. Because people have had their lives transformed on Ethereum. And naturally, as long as you're a generally good person, you'll feel a sense of gratitude, right?
Okay, so people have their lives changed on Ethereum.
Yeah.
But how? Like how tangible is this change? Like what did they do on Ethereum that led to this like change, or like what help did they get from Ethereum?
Okay.
I think this is a good point for us to move on to the next topic that we wanted to talk about, which is as like adults, right? We are adults and we have limited hours of our lives. Like, why should we give to Ethereum? I guess similar-ish question to what you're trying to say, but like, what value can we get out of?
Yeah, so
Web3,
these
I guess.
people, like you said, that they went into Ethereum and then their lives were transformed and stuff like that. But like I need like concrete examples
Right.
because I can't picture it. Like you don't like, does an avatar just jump into the protocol and then you get like a 360 degree, like 180 degree transformation? Like what is this transformation that you're talking about, and how do we participate in it?
So not necessarily only in Ethereum. I think it's possible to find organizations that are value aligned to you. And so it's actually, for us, it's very different because, say you're applying for a job, right? And you go through like layers of job interviews and all of that, right? Before you can even set foot onto the company. Here, all the documentation, everything is open and you can actually find out about these organizations before you even set up your first call, right? And that's something that I think we're very, very unused to. So how does this transform your life, right? I think, firstly, one thing I've noticed is that when you ask people, right, what would you like to do? Very few people will say, I want to make money. A lot of people will say, I want to do good.
Oh, you mean on
Young
Web3?
disagrees. I want money.
Oh, okay.
Like, let's have a bit of the idealism, right? I think
Yeah.
a lot of people in general, like when you ask them and they're like, actually, after I have made my money, I want to do good. Okay, maybe I'll clarify that. Maybe that's a bit more clear. Like, yeah, need to, buy BTO and stuff.
yeah.
Right. So I think all of that is kind of interesting. And what happens is that because in Web3, like people are looking for talent. And so the equation flips. Just a very simple example, right? I think right now, when people are talking about opening up after COVID, that kind of stuff, and organizations are like, oh, I want all my people to come back to the office or something like that, right? That has never been a question in Web3. Because where you work doesn't matter than the value you bring. Like, this has not been a question. So this is really interesting because it shows you that sheer gap in how we value the people we work with. Yeah.
That you give them a lot of autonomy and you give them trust, and with that kind of trust, they almost feel compelled to give back. So it's almost like a
So you don't
It's
need
a cycle.
you don't need mental off days.
Yeah.
Mental health days,
Yeah, we don't
Like,
need
we talked about that too. So 2
Oh.
episodes ago, we talked about how certain employees may not feel like their work is valued enough.
Right.
So maybe it sounds like Web3 might be something that will change that a bit.
Yeah,
Because
so
you
I
can
think-
choose where you want to work. And,
Right, yeah.
And if you feel like you're not rewarded enough, you can move on.
Yeah.
Much easier, right? Because you work from home. You work from anywhere, and you are not tied to it because you are giving back.
Or at
in
least
a
giving,
sense, or you're
or giving
giving to
like
the
fairly valued.
value to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are way more people who want to profit off of this beautiful platform that people have created rather than contributing to it. So I feel like maybe that is a problem right now. Like we just want to profit out of what other people have built. So perhaps like maybe there is like a long way to go in that sense. Like
It always is, yeah.
right, like so. Okay, Qing Ze, us three, we are not in the Web3 space. Like we're not contributing to Ethereum or Bitcoin. Oh well, Clem is contributing to Bitcoin.
I'm just playing crypto.
Yeah, but how do we as individuals play a part in this like idealistic like
In this
society
community, right.
that you speak of?
Right.
Maybe any of like all those like real life applications that
Yeah,
you can see in
or-
the future. You know?
Yeah, like besides even like getting a job in Web3,
Right,
how do we as individuals play a part in it?
So this is definitely quite a difficult question in the sense that like ultimately it's your own agency. But also like I think hold on to these values and give yourself a chance. Like I think that's the first thing that you can do for yourself. Never mind Web3, never mind the world, right? Because of the openness of things, right? This means that there are less barriers, and so there's really very little reason for you to not try or to go and read up about things, right? And interact with people and DM them on Twitter or like hang out on Discord and talk to people. And most importantly, find that community that you care about and just go on from there, right? So I think that's the first thing that's super important. And you're already starting to see this sort of like happen. I think post-COVID, there has been a bit of a awakening, maybe? Then how would you describe it? Like revelation?
Yeah.
Right? That like maybe, you know, I would like to work on things that I care about a bit more. I would like to give myself a bit more time for myself. Because when you sort of like unplug for a moment and then you start looking around, I mean, like when you take out your VR goggles, right, and you look around, you're like, oh, so wait, what have I actually been doing, right? So I guess take this pause and really like reflect. And I guess back to intentionality, right? Like, so if I would like to help out in Web3, right, I think, why? Right? The first question is always, why Web3? Right? I could also help out at a pet shelter if I like pets.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? And that's actually the first question. And I think once we learn to tackle that question meaningfully, then everything else will flow very, very easily. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think we had a conversation about this previously also about like how how we can enter Web3.
Yep.
And I think you told me that like, oh, you know, we have skills. Like we
Yes.
have transferable skills. Or rather, we have skills that maybe other people might not have. Like, for example, we know how to video edit, or we know how to run a podcast, for
Yes.
example. And maybe that would be our stepping stone into communities.
For this
and-
particular group of people?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a skill that they need, and
Exactly.
we
Spreading
can
the
provide
word.
the value, and they will reward us.
Yeah, we're like the prophets,
Yes.
you know.
Profits.
Okay, no, cut that out. We're not prophets. Yeah,
It's a
we're
bit
just
much.
we're just
Yeah.
former children.
From children.
Find an adult shape hole for you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. No, but I feel like at the essence of it all, right, Qing Ze really believes in the good of people.
Yep.
And I think that that is what differentiates you and Yang hates people. I'm kidding.
I really do, especially myself.
I feel like you have so much trust in people and like the good essence of
Right.
like what people can do for other people,
Right.
and perhaps that is also the essence of Web3 as well. It's just your willingness to work with other people and not try to own everything in this world or like compete with other people, but you're just like sharing your knowledge and sharing your skills with others.
Yeah.
So you're a good guy, Qing Ze.
I try.
You're a good guy. Yang, you're not a good guy.
I really know I'm
kidding.
not. I know, it's okay.
I'm kidding.
So maybe just to quickly wrap up like our whole conversation today, maybe just since you could just tell us like like, you know, given Web3 is here, like why would it matter to us? Like why should we partake in this new revolution, you know?
So I think simply put, right, I think Web3 is here to stay. Whether we like it or not, it's a part of our lives. There are lots of people building on it. So since this is like a tool that is like provided for a lot of us, why not take the chance to use it to do what you want to do, right? I think also that the one thing interesting is that Web3 is already here. Like when I started traveling, you got to get these vaccination certificates, right? So for Singapore, like our vaccination certificates and also our MOE certs are already on the blockchain. So it is slowly being a part of our lives. In fact, even the Singapore dollar already has a representation on the blockchain too.
Oh,
What?
that I didn't know. That I didn't know.
Yeah, so
What does
the
that mean?
XSGD is on it. So
Oh.
nobody will really know what it really means, but like there are more parts of these like Web3 elements that are being a part of our lives, and I think it will probably explode or grow even faster. And the best part is that because of its openness, you can be a part of it, right? This isn't like a revolution where only like developers will benefit, right? I think some of us mentioned here that you have your own skill sets that you can use to benefit, or like say you're great at doing podcasts, right? There's definitely a need for people to do podcasts. I've quite a few friends that have actually started doing podcasts on Web3 and started working in Web3. And because of the sort of like adjacent skills of like being able to articulate, interview people, create safe spaces and make them feel nice, all of that actually makes a really good community manager. And so people grow strength to strength. And so bit by bit. But I guess the challenge here is that, you won't see this progression path because this thing is a Cambrian explosion of things, right? You don't know what things are going to evolve into. And I think that's kind of fun. I mean, I would like to have a exciting life. and hopefully, this is something that I can do for the coming years. And I hope more people will join me on this journey and really try to live and use these tools to do things that you would like to see.
Yeah, you already successfully roped in one person, Aka, my boyfriend.
Yeah. I hope his life has been changed.
Oh, definitely. yeah.
Nice.
All right, thank you so much, Qing Ze, for sharing so much information with us. So if you want to know more about Web3, you can reach out to Qing Ze. He's working at Tribe.
Yeah, so I think Tribe exists both between Web 2 and Web 3, and we provide a very unique perspective here. So I guess this is one of the gateways that you can do to get started in Web 3. We run a lot of programs like boot camps, education, incubation. And I think these are things that would probably get you a leg up rather than being sort of like thrown into the murky waters, or some people call it the dark forest of Web 3. And if you're curious, that's how a boyfriend got a job. But like,
yeah.
I do reply my DMs. I think to me it's sort of a duty to try and reach out and help people. And so rest assured, if you're curious, you want to find out more, feel free.
Qing Ze believes in the good in people.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I'm
Faith in
gonna
humanity
reach
restored.
out to Qing Ze and I'm just gonna troll him with
Give me job.
stupid ass questions.
I want you.
Okay. I think we can end off today's episode here. I feel like we really covered a lot of things.
Yeah, truly. But I feel like even though we covered a lot of things, we really just scratched the surface.
And this is like only the beginning. And I think like whatever we mentioned today probably would be obsolete in like 2 or 3 years because of
there'll
how
be
fast
more
things are
coming out,
changing.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So this is the end of the podcast. Do make sure to leave a 5-star review on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also follow and subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform, and so that you'll be notified as well whenever a new episode get released. I also love if you could share this on your own social media platforms as well.
Like Instagram, put it on your Instagram story. I'm gonna share this this episode especially on Twitter because Twitter is where all the NFT action is at.
True.
Qing Ze promised that he will mint my face so that I can put it on my.
Oh my god.
I want the hexagon NFT profile picture on Twitter.
Oh my
So-
goodness, you're
yeah.
vain.
I guess it's a perfect gift.
Yeah,
It is,
I'm
it
waiting
is.
to mint it. But okay, where can we reach out to you, Qing Ze?
So I think as most people are on Web3, we're on Twitter. That's just where lots of like people are. I'm not sure why it became that way. It's a centralized platform, but sure. So that's one way of reaching out to me. So I'm Fish Biscuit on Twitter, but the I is an underscore. Someone else already took it. So it's a
Shit.
fish, but the fish is an underscore biscuit.
So F_SHBISCUIT.
UIT.
Yes.
Right. I
Okay.
really struggled with spelling that. Okay. And where can we reach you, Jin?
You can find me on Instagram at Jinxyu, JINXYOO.
My Instagram is at CLAMUSPANGG.
And
Camuspang.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Too eager to plug my own platform, but I'm
Indeed.
Ng Yang, NGYIYNG, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter as well.
Yay.
Yeah, okay,
Alright.
and that's
Thank
it
you.
for today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Qing Ze. All right. Catch
No,
you
no,
guys.
wait, we have a quote of the day.
Oh, we do have a quote. You have a quote?
I don't. Qing Ze, do you have a quote?
about like a very well-known quote
Yeah,
about
what's your
Web3.
favorite quote on Web3?
Well-known quote.
I feel like you have a lot of quotes in your head.
Well, there's one that just came to mind, which is I think Ethereum has this program called Next Billion, and on it says, "Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will not enjoy."
Oh my god, 十年树人树木百年树人 Yes.
Yeah, like lost.
I feel like I have to listen to the recording of this podcast
Oh my
and
God.
process that.
So chaos. But okay, it is a Chinese saying, right? 十年树木百年树人 It takes 10 years to plant a tree.
Three,
It takes-
Web3, it takes 10 years.
Okay, this is the most
don't know
chaotic
the end
ending
is.
of this. This is the most chaotic podcast ending ever. I'm just gonna cut it here. Bye.
Bye.
Do you have insurance?
When is he gonna propose?
both
Like,
event
this is
already.
so-
Bro.
Hey, adult already. Hello.